Have you ever walked out of a meeting, a dinner, a conversation, and felt something off? You couldn't explain it. You had no proof. But something inside you said, "This isn't right." And you ignored it. And then, weeks or months later, you found out you were right from the very beginning. Has that ever happened to you? Because if it has, I need you to understand something that will change the way you relate to people for the rest of your life. And it starts right now. There is a skill you have been developing over decades of living, a skill built by every experience you've had, every disappointment you've survived, every relationship that taught you something, good or bad. This skill has no degree, no certificate. It doesn't show up on any resume, but it may be the most valuable thing you carry. It's called intuition. And the problem is that most of us spent our entire lives being taught to ignore it. Don't judge people before you know them. Give them the benefit of the doubt. You have no proof. Don't be so suspicious. Those phrases sound reasonable. They sound kind. They sound mature. But do you know what they've done to a lot of good people? They've kept open-hearted, well-meaning people in the wrong relationships for years. They've kept people in toxic environments that wore down their bodies and their souls. They've made people give second, third, and fourth chances to those who never deserved even the first. All because we learned to doubt ourselves before we doubted others. Now let me show you the real cost of that. Think of a situation in your life. It could be recent, it could be years ago, where you felt that strange feeling about someone, that nameless unease, that quiet alarm, and you ignored it. What happened next? Chances are the feeling was right, and the price you paid for ignoring it, whether in time, in energy, in emotional health, in broken trust, was high, very high. I'm not saying this to make you feel bad. I'm saying it because I want you to see a pattern. Intuition doesn't show up once. It shows up again and again. It knocks on the same door. It whispers, then speaks, then shouts. And when we keep not listening, life teaches us the lesson in a much more painful way. And here is something science has confirmed that older and wiser people have always known. Intuition is not mysticism. It is not superstition. It is your brain processing decades of information in an instant, before your conscious mind can keep up. Researchers at the University of Cambridge found that intuitive decisions in high experience contexts are often more accurate than purely analytical ones, because the experienced brain recognizes patterns that are invisible to the conscious eye. In other words, when you have a strange feeling about someone, it's not paranoia. It's accumulated wisdom speaking faster than words can. So why is it so hard to trust that voice? Because we were conditioned to value what can be proven, what can be explained, what can be justified to others. Why don't you like her? I don't know, it's just a feeling. That's not a good enough reason. and so we back down. We feel embarrassed. We convince ourselves we're overreacting. But think about this. Would you need a logical reason not to eat something that smells bad? Your nose warns you before you need to chemically analyze the food. You simply trust that signal and don't eat it. Why would it be any different with people? Your body has a risk detection system that evolved over thousands of years. And after decades of living, that system has become even more finely tuned, more precise, more reliable. The question isn't whether you should trust your intuition. The question is, are you going to learn to listen to it before the cost of ignoring it becomes too great? Now I want to tell you a story. There was an old master who lived in a small village in the mountains. He was known for his wisdom, and people came from distant places to seek his counsel. One day a young merchant arrived with a wide smile and beautiful words. He said he wanted to become the master's disciple. He said he admired the master's wisdom above all things. The villagers around him were charmed. The young man was charismatic, articulate, generous in appearance. But the master stayed quiet. He watched. He said nothing. After the young man left, one of the villagers asked, "Master, why didn't you accept the disciple? He seemed so sincere." The master replied, "The bamboo that bends with the wind survives the storm. But the bamboo that pretends to be an oak, when the storm comes, it breaks." "But how did you know?" the villager pressed. "I didn't know," said the master. "I felt it. And I have learned over 70 years that the difference between the two is smaller than most people think." 3 months later, the young merchant was discovered cheating people in several villages across the region. The master had no proof. He had something more valuable: decades of attention to what lies beneath words. Did you hear that? Decades of attention to what lies beneath words. That is exactly what you have, what I have, what anyone who has lived long enough has. But the turn I want you to take away from here is this: intuition without discernment can become prejudice. Intuition paired with wisdom is protection. There is an important difference between feeling discomfort because someone is different from you and feeling discomfort because something is genuinely wrong. The first deserves to be questioned. The second deserves to be respected. Healthy intuition is not paranoia. It is not a snap judgment. It is a gentle, steady attention to what your body, your experience, and your life story already know, even when your mind is still searching for the right words. And here is the core of everything. You do not owe anyone an explanation for your intuition. You don't owe emotional justification to those who don't respect your boundaries. Feeling uncomfortable around someone is reason enough to step back with dignity. So how do you start trusting your intuition more? In practical terms, starting today. The first thing is to stop apologizing for your feelings. When you feel something, that feeling is real. It may be right, it may be incomplete, but it is real, and it deserves to be taken seriously before it's dismissed. The second thing is to build a habit of asking yourself, what is my body telling me? Not your mind, your body. When you're around a certain person, do you feel light or heavy? Open or closed, relaxed or tense? The body always responds before the mind does. Learn to ask it. The third thing is to make a list. Yes, a simple list. Take a piece of paper and write down past situations where you had a feeling you ignored and regretted it. Not to blame yourself, but to recognize a pattern. To see that your intuition has a track record of being right that deserves far more credit than you've given it. The fourth thing is to give yourself permission to act on what you feel, even without being able to explain it. You don't need an internal courtroom to validate your own feelings. Trusting yourself is an act of self-respect, and self-respect at this stage of life is not a luxury. It is a necessity. Because here is what I want you to take away from this video. You have lived a full life. You have been through things most people can't imagine. You have survived situations that taught you more than any book ever could. All of that experience doesn't live only in your memory. It lives in your body. It speaks through your feelings. It shows up in those sensations that arrive without warning, the ones you haven't fully learned to listen to yet. Respect that voice, not because it's infallible, but because it's yours, built from the clay of your own story. Sometimes the heart understands what the mind is still trying to explain. We don't always need proof. Some feelings are already answers. And one of the bravest things you can do at this stage of life is to trust yourself without asking anyone's permission. If this video touched something you already knew, but maybe had forgotten, then it did exactly what it was meant to do. Leave a comment below. Tell me, was there ever a time you ignored your intuition and later regretted it? What happened? Subscribe to the channel. Every week there's new content made especially for people who believe their best years are still ahead of them. And share this video with someone who needs to hear it today. Sometimes the right message arrives through the right person at exactly the right time. See you in the next one. Trust yourself.